Picture this: Victorian children waking on Christmas morning, not with excitement, but with absolute dread. Their stockings hung heavy, not with treats and toys, but with coal, switches, and warnings of punishment to come. Tonight, we journey back to a time when Christmas wasn't about joy, but about judgment, when Father Christmas wasn't jolly, but terrifying, when children feared what lurked in the shadows of December 25th. You won't believe how dark this beloved holiday once was. So get comfortable, pull those blankets up close, and let your mind drift back through the centuries with me. If you're enjoying these cozy historical journeys, please consider subscribing to Sleepy Holidays for more peaceful educational stories. Tonight, we'll explore the shadows of Christmas past, the fears that gripped little hearts, and the evolution of holiday traditions. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and let's step into that misty Victorian morning together. Chapter 1: Christmas Morning Gloom. The fog clings to cobblestone streets like whispered secrets. Frost paints intricate patterns on frosted window panes, while inside, children stir reluctantly from their beds. This isn't the Christmas morning we know today, filled with eager anticipation and gleeful shouts. No, this is 1850 something, and Christmas morning brings a different kind of awakening, one tinged with uncertainty and the peculiar dread that settled deep in young hearts across Victorian England. Listen closely. Can you hear it? The cautious footsteps of children tiptoeing down, creaking wooden stairs. Their breath forms small clouds in the chilly morning air, hearts beating with nervous rhythm. They approach their stockings with trembling hands. These aren't the eager rushes we imagine today, but hesitant, almost fearful movements. You see, Victorian children had learned to associate Christmas morning not with guaranteed gifts, but with the very real possibility of disappointment, or worse, punishment. The stockings themselves tell a story: heavy woolen things, rough to the touch, hanging limply by the hearth. Inside, children might find the dreaded lump of coal, black as midnight, cold as winter's heart. Or perhaps a bundle of birch switches, thin and flexible, designed for one purpose only. These weren't novelty gifts or playful warnings, but real implements of discipline, reminders that Christmas morning served as Judgment Day, when good behavior was rewarded and misbehavior was corrected. And misbehavior was coal wasn't just a symbol, it was a practical gift of sorts, fuel for the fire during England's harsh winters. But wrapped carefully in brown paper, placed deliberately in a child's stocking, it carried a message far heavier than its weight. Your behavior this year has been noted, weighed, and found wanting. The black lump served as both punishment and reminder, a dark promise that improvement was expected, or consequences would follow in the year ahead. Switches told an even more direct story. These weren't decorative branches, but carefully selected birch twigs, supple enough to bend without breaking, thin enough to sting without causing lasting harm. Parents would bundle them with ribbon, almost mockingly festive, and tuck them into stockings like twisted holiday decorations. The message was unmistakable. Christmas morning brought not just celebration, but accountability, a reckoning for the year's transgressions, wrapped in holiday tradition. But where did this stern approach to Christmas originate? The answer lies in the evolution of Father Christmas himself. Long before he became the jolly red-suited gift-giver we know today, he was something far different, far more intimidating. The original Father Christmas was a figure of judgment, a supernatural being who kept detailed records of children's behavior, arriving not to reward, but to evaluate, to separate the worthy from the wanting, the good from the naughty. Imagine him, tall and imposing, draped in dark robes that rustled like winter wind through bare branches, his face hidden in shadow, eyes that seemed to see straight through to a child's soul, penetrating every secret, every small rebellion, every moment of disobedience throughout the year. This wasn't a figure who brought comfort, but one who brought reckoning, a supernatural accountant of morality, arriving on Christmas morning to settle the year's moral debts with precision and finality. The transformation of Father Christmas from stern judge to benevolent gift giver didn't happen overnight. It evolved slowly through centuries of folklore, religious influence, and cultural shift. But in Victorian times, the older, more intimidating version still held sway, still visited homes on Christmas Eve, still left behind tokens of judgment rather than tokens of joy. Coal and switches served as his calling cards, reminders that Christmas was first and foremost about moral evaluation. Children learned to read the signs. A heavy stocking meant judgment had been passed. A light one might mean they'd escaped notice, or perhaps that something worse awaited. The anticipation built throughout December, each small misbehavior cataloged in their minds, each harsh word or moment of defiance remembered. Christmas morning became the day of reckoning, when the year's moral ledger would be balanced, when accounts would be settled, when consequences would be delivered with ceremonial precision. The irony wasn't lost on Victorian society. Here was the celebration of Christ's birth, a message of love and redemption, twisted into a system of fear and punishment. Yet parents believed this approach served a greater purpose. Christmas discipline would shape character, build moral fiber, create responsible adults from wayward children. The holiday became a tool of child rearing, a supernatural enforcement mechanism, wrapped in religious tradition and seasonal ceremony. But the coal and switches were just the beginning. The real terror came from the stories, whispered between children, passed down through generations, tales of what happened to those who repeatedly found punishment in their stockings. These weren't idle threats or empty folklore, but warnings of something far more sinister, something that visited the truly wayward, something that made coal and switches seem like gentle reminders compared to what awaited the persistently disobedient. The shadows seemed deeper on Christmas morning, the fog more impenetrable, the silence more complete, as if something waited just beyond perception, watching, evaluating, deciding. Children who found multiple years of coal in their stockings began to whisper of other visits, other consequences, other forms of Christmas judgment that went far beyond simple switches and stern words. Something ancient stirred in the winter darkness, something that predated Father Christmas, something far more terrifying. The truly unfortunate children, those who consistently disappointed, began to report strange happenings. Footprints in the frost that weren't quite human, scratches on window glass that appeared overnight, the sound of chains dragging across rooftops, strange smells, sulfur and ash, creeping through chimney gaps. These weren't imagination, but warnings, signs that Christmas discipline had attracted attention from something far older, far more committed to punishment than any human parent could ever be. As Victorian Christmas morning drew to its gloomy close, children clutching their coal and switches knew that someone or something was watching. The fog would lift, the day would pass, but the feeling of being observed never quite faded, for in the heart of winter, in the depths of December, ancient things stirred, things that remembered when Christmas was about judgment, when holidays meant reckoning, when creatures far more terrifying than Father Christmas roamed the earth, ensuring that justice was served. Chapter 2, Krampus, the Yuletide Nightmare. Deep in the snow-covered mountains of Central Europe, a different kind of Christmas visitor prowled the winter nights. While children in other lands might fear nothing more than coal in their stockings, here they trembled at the thought of Krampus. This terrifying creature, half man and half goat, brought punishments far more severe than any simple lump of coal could deliver. His legend echoes through centuries of alpine folklore, casting a dark shadow over the season of joy and celebration. Picture this nightmare figure, towering above mortal men with the muscular torso of a human, but legs that ended in cloven hooves. His face was a grotesque fusion of man and beast, with wild eyes that glowed like embers in the darkness. Massive curved horns sprouted from his skull, while his body was covered in coarse black fur that reeked of sulfur and decay. Long chains draped across his shoulders, rattling ominously with every step he took through the moonlit villages of the Austrian and German countryside. The origins of Krampus stretch back to pre-Christian alpine traditions, rooted in ancient pagan rituals that celebrated the winter solstice. Germanic tribes spoke of horned entities that roamed the earth during the darkest nights of the year, spirits that embodied the untamed wilderness and primal fears of humanity. When Christianity spread through these mountain regions, church leaders tried to suppress these old beliefs. Yet Krampus proved too deeply embedded in the cultural consciousness to simply disappear, adapting instead to become part of the Christmas tradition itself. Unlike the jolly St. Nicholas, who rewarded good behavior with gifts and treats, Krampus served as his dark counterpart, the enforcer of divine judgment upon wayward children. On the night of December 5th, known as Krampusnacht, this fearsome creature would emerge from his mountain lair to hunt for those who had misbehaved throughout the year. Armed with bundles of birch branches called rootin, he would beat naughty children before stuffing them into his woven basket and dragging them back to his underground lair for eternal punishment and torment. But Krampus was not merely a boogeyman told in whispered bedtime stories. His presence became a living, breathing tradition through the Krampus-Lauf, a parade that transformed entire communities into theaters of supernatural terror. These events, still held today in Austria, Germany, and other alpine regions, bring the ancient legend crashing into modern reality. As winter darkness settles over cobblestone streets, the sound of heavy bells and rattling chains announces that something ancient and primal is about to emerge from the shadows of folklore into the realm of the living. The Krampus-Lauf begins as twilight fades and the first stars appear in the winter sky. Participants, many of whom have spent months crafting their elaborate costumes, emerge from homes and gathering places throughout the village. They move in procession through narrow streets, their heavy footsteps echoing off ancient stone walls. Massive cowbells hang from their belts, creating a haunting symphony that can be heard from miles away. Torches flicker in the darkness, casting dancing shadows that make the costumed figures appear even more otherworldly and menacing to onlookers. The Krampus costumes themselves are works of dark artistry, requiring months of preparation and considerable skill to create. Elaborate masks carved from wood depict the creature's terrifying visage, with protruding tongues, glowing eyes, and horns that can weigh several pounds each. And thick layers of sheep or goat fur cover the body, while leather straps hold massive bells that weigh up to 30 pounds. The participants, known as Krampy, often suffer bruises and exhaustion from carrying these heavy costumes, yet they endure this physical punishment as part of honoring the ancient tradition. As darkness deepens, The atmosphere becomes increasingly charged with primal energy and ancient fear. The Krampus roam freely through the streets, no longer bound by the normal rules of civilized society. They chase spectators, rattle their chains menacingly, and swing their birch branches through the air. Children cling to their parents, wide-eyed with terror and fascination, as these embodiments of their darkest nightmares stride past. The boundary between myth and reality dissolves completely, transforming a quiet alpine village into something resembling a medieval vision of purgatory unleashed upon the earth. For the children witnessing these parades, the experience cuts far deeper than mere entertainment or cultural observation. These young minds, raised on stories of Krampus since their earliest years, watch their deepest fears take physical form before their very eyes. Some hide behind their mother's skirts, trembling as the creatures pass by. Others stand transfixed, unable to look away from the hypnotic spectacle of terror unfolding in their own familiar neighborhood streets. The psychological impact is profound and lasting, embedding the ancient lessons of obedience and moral behavior deep within their developing consciousness. Young Emma Miller, just 7 years old, experienced her first Krampuslof in the Austrian village of Salzburg in 1847. She had been warned by her grandmother about the importance of good behavior, but nothing could have prepared her for the reality of seeing Krampus emerge from the winter darkness. As the creature approached her family's position along the parade route, Emma felt her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. The massive bells grew louder, the chains rattled closer, and suddenly she found herself face to face with her darkest nightmares made flesh. Christmas Eve took on an entirely different meaning for children in these alpine communities where the possibility of Krampus lurked in every shadow and creaking floorboard. Instead of excitement about gifts and celebration, young ones lay in their beds, listening to every sound outside their windows. Was that the wind rattling the shutters, or the approach of cloven hooves on cobblestone streets? Many parents found their children huddled together, too frightened to sleep alone, as they waited for dawn to break the spell of darkness that might conceal the approach of their horned nemesis. Johann Schneider, a baker's son from a small Bavarian village, later recalled how he spent the entire night of December 5th hiding beneath his feather blanket. Every creak of the old wooden house sent shivers down his spine. Every gust of wind sounded like the approach of something terrible. His mother had scolded him earlier that week for stealing apples from a neighbor's tree, and now he was certain that Krampus knew of his transgression. The weight of guilt mixed with terror created a cocktail of fear that would stay with him long into his adult years. Yet beyond the fear and terror, the Krampus tradition served a deeper cultural purpose that connected communities to their ancestral wisdom and shared values. The ritual acknowledged the dual nature of existence, the light and dark that exists within every human soul. By confronting their fears in a controlled community setting, both children and adults participated in an ancient form of moral education. The tradition reminded everyone that choices have consequences, that behavior matters, and that the community itself serves as both protector and judge of individual actions throughout the year. This stood in stark contrast to the Christmas traditions developing simultaneously in America, where the holiday was becoming increasingly associated with commercial gift-giving and domestic comfort. While alpine children faced the terrifying possibility of supernatural punishment, American youngsters were beginning to embrace the gentler figure of Santa Claus. This jolly gift bringer represented abundance and unconditional love, rather than moral judgment and potential punishment. The American Christmas was transforming into a celebration of prosperity and family warmth, a sharp departure from the fear-based traditions of the Old World. British Christmas customs of the same period fell somewhere between these two extremes, maintaining elements of moral instruction while gradually softening the harsh edges of punishment-focused traditions. Victorian children might still receive switches or lumps of coal for bad behavior, but they were also beginning to experience the magic of Christmas trees, festive meals, and family gatherings. The British were crafting a middle path that honored tradition while embracing a more optimistic view of childhood and celebration, setting the stage for the modern Christmas celebration we know today. As we close this exploration of Krampus and his dark domain, we see how geography and culture shaped entirely different approaches to the same sacred season. The Alpine tradition of confronting fear head on created strong community bonds and clear moral boundaries, while other cultures began to emphasize joy and abundance instead. These contrasting approaches reveal fundamental questions about human nature, childhood, and the role that both celebration and fear play in shaping our understanding of right and wrong. Tomorrow night, we'll explore another fascinating chapter in holiday history. Chapter 3, Across the Pond. America's Stern Saint Nick. When European traditions crossed the Atlantic Ocean, they didn't arrive unchanged. In colonial America, St. Nicholas transformed into something uniquely different, a figure who still carried the weight of judgment and discipline. While not as terrifying as Europe's Krampus, this American St. Nick remained a stern arbiter of childhood behavior, watching, waiting, and deciding who deserved rewards and who deserved consequences for their actions throughout the year. This wasn't the jolly Santa we know today, but rather a serious, almost judicial figure who took his role very seriously. American children learned to both anticipate and fear his annual visit, knowing that their behavior throughout the year would determine their fate. Unlike the gift-giving saint of modern times, this Saint Nick carried switches alongside any presents, ready to deliver discipline to those who had misbehaved, making Christmas morning a mixture of excitement and genuine anxiety. In early American households, parents would tell stories of Saint Nick's keen observation skills, how he watched children from afar, noting every transgression and every act of kindness. His list wasn't just about who was naughty or nice, it was a detailed accounting of character and conduct. Children would lie in bed on Christmas Eve, wondering whether they had been good enough, whether their small rebellions and moments of selfishness had been overshadowed by their attempts at virtue. But America was changing, and with it, the stories we told ourselves about Christmas and childhood. The harsh realities of colonial life were giving way to new ideas about family, about joy, and about what the holiday season should truly represent. And this transformation didn't happen overnight, but rather through the work of writers and artists who began to imagine a different kind of Christmas spirit, one that would forever change how we view this magical season. In 1823, a professor named Clement Clark Moore sat down to write something special for his children. Moore lived in a world where Christmas was still largely a religious observance, where gift-giving was modest and discipline remained central to the holiday's meaning. But as he penned his verses, something wonderful began to emerge, a vision of Christmas that would capture imaginations for generations to come, transforming the stern Saint Nick into someone entirely different, someone magical and warm. Moore called his creation a visit from Saint Nicholas, though the world would come to know it as 'twas the night before Christmas. In these playful verses, Saint Nick became Santa Claus, a jolly old elf with a round belly and twinkling eyes. Gone was the stern judge of children's behavior, replaced by a merry gift giver who brought joy rather than judgment. The poem painted Christmas Eve as a time of wonder, magic, and pure childhood delight. The poem spread like wildfire across America, published in newspapers, and shared in homes from coast to coast. Families gathered around fireplaces to read Moore's verses aloud, and with each telling, the old stern St. Nick faded a little more from memory. Children began to anticipate Christmas with pure excitement rather than nervous anxiety, knowing that Santa Claus came not to judge, but to celebrate the simple joy of childhood and the magic of believing in something wonderful. Moore's Santa was approachable, human-sized despite his magical abilities, someone who enjoyed cookies and milk, who chuckled as he worked, who took genuine pleasure in bringing happiness to children. This was a revolutionary concept, the idea that the Christmas figure could be purely benevolent, motivated by love rather than the need to teach lessons through fear. The transformation was beginning, but it would take an artist's vision to make it complete and lasting. Enter Thomas Nast, a German-American illustrator whose artistic genius would give visual life to Moore's words. In the 1860s, Nast began creating illustrations of Santa Claus for Harper's Weekly magazine, and with each drawing, he further softened and humanized this Christmas figure. Through Nast's skilled pen, Santa became not just jolly in description, but visibly warm, approachable, and completely non-threatening, a grandfather figure rather than a stern authority. Nast's illustrations showed Santa in his workshop, surrounded by toys and helped by cheerful elves, painting a picture of Christmas preparation filled with joy and creativity rather than judgment and record keeping. His Santa had rosy cheeks, kind eyes, and a smile that radiated warmth and acceptance. These images appeared in homes across America, giving families a shared vision of what Christmas magic looked like. A vision that emphasized generosity over discipline, wonder over fear. Through his art, Nast established many of the Santa traditions we still cherish today. The North Pole Workshop, the detailed list of children's wishes rather than transgressions, the idea of Santa as a craftsman who took pride in creating perfect gifts for each child. His illustrations appeared year after year, each one reinforcing the image of Christmas as a celebration of childhood wonder, a time when magic felt real and love conquered all fears. As Nast's gentle Santa gained popularity, the old stern St. Nick gradually disappeared from American consciousness. Parents began to embrace this softer approach to Christmas, seeing how it brought pure joy to their children without the need for fear or anxiety. The holiday season became a time of anticipation rather than apprehension, a celebration of family warmth rather than moral accounting, a magical period where love and generosity reigned supreme over judgment and consequence. This transformation reflected broader changes happening across Western culture as societies began to view childhood differently, as a time of innocence to be protected rather than a period requiring constant correction. The Industrial Revolution was creating new prosperity, allowing families to focus more on joy and celebration, less on survival and strict discipline. Christmas became a symbol of this cultural shift, embracing warmth over harshness, celebration over judgment, hope over fear. The gentler era was truly beginning, not just in how we celebrated Christmas, but in how we approached family life and childhood itself. Santa Claus became the perfect embodiment of this new philosophy, a figure who loved unconditionally, who celebrated children for who they were, rather than judging them for who they weren't, who brought magic into the world simply because magic made life more beautiful, more hopeful, more filled with wonder and possibility. Churches and communities embraced this transformation, seeing how the gentler Santa brought families together rather than creating anxiety and division. Christmas pageants began featuring jolly, welcoming Santa figures, and holiday celebrations focused on joy, gratitude, and shared happiness. The stern disciplinarian of earlier generations gave way to a figure who represented the best of human nature, kindness, generosity, and the simple pleasure of making others happy through thoughtful giving. By the late 1800s, America had successfully transformed Christmas from a day of potential judgment into a celebration of pure joy. The stern Saint Nick had evolved into Santa Claus, the Christmas figure who would define holiday magic for generations to come. But this transformation was just the beginning, as commercial forces and changing times would continue to shape and reshape our beloved Santa, leading us toward the Christmas traditions we cherish today and tomorrow's dreams yet to unfold. Chapter 4: Britain's Father Christmas, a morality tale. While children across Europe trembled before Krampus and his chains, Britain developed its own stern Christmas figure. Father Christmas arrived not with jolly laughter, but with the weight of moral judgment upon his shoulders. He peered into homes with knowing eyes, measuring the goodness of each child's heart, determining who deserved reward and who required gentle correction through his solemn presence during the holiday season. This British Father Christmas wore robes of deep green or sometimes somber brown, his beard flowing like winter frost down his chest. He carried no sack of toys, but rather the invisible burden of moral authority. Children knew him as a figure who watched, who weighed their actions throughout the year, who arrived not to punish with switches, but to remind them that Christmas was a time for reflection, for examining one's conscience, for becoming better. Unlike the terrifying creatures of Alpine tradition, Britain's Father Christmas embodied quiet wisdom rather than fearsome punishment. He appeared in doorways like a gentle ghost, speaking softly of charity and kindness. His presence reminded families that the season demanded more than mere celebration. It required spiritual awakening, a turning of hearts toward compassion. Children learned to respect his solemn visits, understanding that Christmas morning brought both gifts and the responsibility to earn them through goodness. As Britain's literary culture flourished, writers began weaving Father Christmas into stories that explored deeper themes of morality and redemption. Christmas literature emerged as a powerful force, transforming how people understood the holiday's meaning. Authors crafted tales where the Christmas spirit appeared not as punishment, but as opportunity, a chance for souls to transform, for hearts to soften, for communities to heal the wounds of everyday indifference and selfishness. These literary works painted Christmas as a mirror, reflecting both humanity's capacity for cruelty and its potential for boundless compassion. Stories emerged where miserly characters discovered joy through giving, where lonely hearts found connection through service, where the Christmas spirit worked not through fear, but through the gentle revelation that happiness multiplies when shared, that true wealth lies in human kindness rather than material accumulation. Then came Charles Dickens, a writer whose imagination would forever reshape how the world understood Christmas morning. In 1843, he penned a story that began with chains rattling in the darkness, with a miser's heart frozen solid as winter stone, with spirits arriving not to terrorize, but to teach. A Christmas carol emerged from Dickens's pen like a gentle revolution, wrapping profound moral lessons in the soft cloth of supernatural storytelling. Dickens crafted Ebenezer Scrooge as the embodiment of Christmas indifference, a man whose heart had withered like autumn leaves, whose soul had forgotten the warmth of human connection. Yet through his ghostly visitors, Scrooge discovered that Christmas offered redemption to even the coldest spirits. The story whispered that no one was beyond saving, that every heart could learn to beat again, that transformation was possible for anyone willing to see. The three spirits who visited Scrooge represented time itself, past memories that shaped the soul, present realities that demanded attention, and future consequences that awaited every choice. Through their guidance, Scrooge witnessed his own journey from innocent child to hardened miser, saw the suffering his coldness had created, and glimpsed the lonely death that awaited those who choose isolation over connection, fear over love, hoarding over sharing. Dickens' ghostly tale spread across Britain like morning light, transforming how families understood Christmas morning. Readers discovered that the holiday was not about punishment for past wrongs, but about the possibility of future goodness. The story taught that Christmas spirit lived not in external traditions, but in the human capacity for change, for forgiveness, for choosing compassion over cruelty, kindness over indifference, connection over isolation. A Christmas Carol revolutionized the very perception of what Christmas could be. Before Dickens, many saw the holiday as a time for moral accounting, for measuring whether children deserved reward or correction. After his story spread, Christmas began transforming into something more hopeful, a season that celebrated the human potential for goodness, that recognized every person's capacity to change, to grow, to become better than they were yesterday. The radical transformation Dickens inspired rippled through British society like gentle waves. Families began emphasizing forgiveness over judgment, generosity over calculation, warmth over stern correction. Christmas morning evolved from a day of moral reckoning into a celebration of second chances, of new beginnings, of the belief that every human heart contains the seeds of kindness, waiting only for the right season to bloom, to flourish, to transform. Children who once feared Christmas morning for its potential disappointments began anticipating it as a time of wonder and possibility. The stern Father Christmas slowly softened in the collective imagination, his moral authority shifting from judgment to guidance, from correction to encouragement. Families discovered that teaching goodness through love proved far more powerful than attempting to enforce it through fear or disappointment or the threat of empty stockings. The morality tales of this era planted seeds that would grow into our modern Christmas understanding. They established that the holiday's true power lay not in punishment, but in transformation, not in fear, but in hope. These stories whispered that Christmas morning could be a beginning rather than an ending, a door opening onto possibility rather than a final judgment on the year's behavior, a celebration of what people could become. As these literary influences spread, the character of Father Christmas himself began to evolve. His stern countenance gradually warmed, his moral lessons became gentler, his presence shifted from intimidating authority to comforting guide. The transformation was subtle, like winter slowly yielding to spring, but it marked the beginning of something new, a Christmas figure who embodied love rather than judgment, encouragement rather than fear, possibility rather than limitation. By the end of this period, the groundwork was laid for a complete reimagining of Christmas morning. The punitive traditions were slowly giving way to something more nurturing, more hopeful, more aligned with the human heart's deepest longings for connection and joy. These British innovations in Christmas storytelling, these gentle revolutions in holiday meaning, prepared the way for the beloved figure we would soon come to know. As we prepare to witness the birth of our modern Santa Claus, remember how literature transformed fear into wonder, how stories changed punishment into possibility, how the power of imagination softened even the sternest traditions. The evolution from Britain's moral Father Christmas to the jolly figure of today began with writers who dared to dream of a Christmas morning filled with warmth rather than worry, with hope rather than harsh judgment. Chapter 5: From Fear to Festivity. Picture a world where Christmas morning brought dread instead of joy, where children trembled at the thought of stockings filled with coal and switches, but something magical was about to happen across Victorian England. A transformation so profound, it would reshape how we celebrate this beloved holiday forever. The harsh judgment of old Christmas traditions was slowly giving way to something warmer, something kinder, something that would change everything. The year is 1837. Queen Victoria has just ascended to the throne, and with her reign comes a new spirit sweeping across the land. The Industrial Revolution is transforming cities, bringing families closer together in new ways. Factory workers are earning steady wages, middle-class families are growing, and for the first time, ordinary people have a little extra money to spend on simple pleasures, including Christmas celebrations that might actually bring happiness. Social reformers are beginning to speak out against the harsh treatment of children during the holiday season. Writers like Charles Dickens are painting vivid pictures of Christmas kindness, showing readers that the holiday could be about generosity rather than judgment. His stories are circulating through parlors and reading rooms, planting seeds of change in Victorian hearts. The old ways of fear and punishment are starting to feel outdated, even cruel. Prince Albert, Queen Victoria's beloved husband, brings with him a German tradition that will revolutionize Christmas forever. The Christmas tree, once a foreign curiosity, begins appearing in British homes. These evergreen symbols of life and hope stand in stark contrast to the grim traditions of the past. Families gather around these trees, not in fear, but in wonder, decorating them with candles and small ornaments that sparkle like tiny stars. The transformation isn't happening overnight, but gradually, like dawn slowly breaking across a winter landscape. Children are beginning to receive small gifts instead of coal, simple toys carved from wood, perhaps a new dress or a warm pair of mittens. Parents are discovering the joy of giving, the warmth that spreads through a household when Christmas becomes about love rather than discipline. These small changes are creating ripples of happiness. Christmas cards are making their first appearance, colorful illustrations of winter scenes and cheerful messages replacing the somber religious warnings of earlier times. These cards travel from home to home, carrying wishes for joy and peace rather than reminders of judgment. The very act of sending these cards creates connections between families and friends, weaving a web of goodwill that extends far beyond a single household during the Christmas season. The figure of Santa Claus is beginning to evolve from the stern, judicial St. Nicholas of old traditions into something more approachable, more loving. American influences are crossing the Atlantic, bringing with them the image of a jolly, round-bellied gift-giver who rewards good children rather than punishing the bad. This kinder version of Christmas magic is taking root in Victorian imaginations, offering hope instead of fear to children everywhere. Christmas markets are expanding beyond simple necessities to include toys, sweets, and decorative items designed purely for pleasure. Merchants are discovering that people will spend money on things that bring joy, even if they serve no practical purpose. Wooden toys, sugar plums, ribbons, and ornaments. These small luxuries are becoming symbols of a new kind of Christmas, one focused on celebration rather than solemn reflection and fearful anticipation. Family gatherings are taking on a warmer tone, with elaborate meals replacing simple, penitential fasts. The Christmas dinner is becoming a celebration of abundance and togetherness, with families sharing stories and laughter instead of sitting in fearful silence. Children are invited to participate in conversations rather than being seen and not heard. These meals are creating new memories, joyful memories that children will carry forward into their own families. Music is changing too, with cheerful carols replacing the heavy, morose hymns of earlier Christmas traditions. Songs about joy, peace, and goodwill are being sung in homes and churches, lifting spirits and creating an atmosphere of celebration. The human voice, raised in harmony, becomes an instrument of transformation, turning fear into festivity with every note, every shared melody, every moment of musical connection between hearts and souls. Children's literature is embracing Christmas as a time of magic and wonder, publishing stories that emphasize the joy of giving and receiving rather than the consequences of being judged. These tales spread through nurseries and schoolrooms, teaching young minds that Christmas can be anticipated with excitement rather than dread. Each story shared becomes another small victory for festivity over fear, another step toward the Christmas we recognize today. The church itself is beginning to soften its approach, with sermons focusing more on love and redemption rather than judgment and punishment. Ministers are discovering that messages of hope and joy bring families together, while fear and condemnation drive them apart. This gentler approach to Christmas spirituality is creating space for celebration within religious observance, allowing the sacred and the joyful to coexist in beautiful harmony throughout the holiday season. Photography is capturing these new Christmas traditions, preserving images of families gathered around Christmas trees, children playing with toys, tables laden with festive meals. These photographs become treasured keepsakes, proof that Christmas can indeed be a time of happiness. Each captured moment serves as evidence of the transformation taking place, showing future generations that the holiday wasn't always filled with fear, but could overflow with love and laughter. By the 1870s, the transformation is nearly complete. Christmas has become something to eagerly anticipate rather than fearfully endure. Children wake on Christmas morning with excitement instead of trepidation, finding gifts instead of coal, receiving hugs instead of switches. The holiday that once served as a harsh reminder of human failings has blossomed into a celebration of human connection, love, generosity, and the simple joy of being together during winter's darkest days. This shift from fear to festivity creates fertile ground for something entirely new, the commercialization of Christmas. As families embrace gift giving and celebration, merchants begin to see opportunities. Toy makers, confectioners, and decorators start planning entire seasons around Christmas sales. What began as a rejection of harsh traditions is evolving into something unprecedented, a holiday driven not just by tradition or spirituality, but by commerce and consumption. The Victorian transformation of Christmas from fear to festivity sets the stage for everything that follows the department store window displays, the elaborate gift exchanges, the commercial Christmas we know today. This chapter in Christmas history shows us how cultural change happens gradually, gently, one family, one tradition, one moment of choosing joy over fear at a time. The echoes of this transformation still resonate in our modern celebrations. Chapter 6: The Invention of Santa Claus. Picture this: somewhere in the misty corridors of history, a remarkable transformation was taking place. The stern, judgmental figures that once visited children during the winter months were slowly, gently morphing into something entirely different. Gone were the frightening robes and switches, replaced by something warmer, something kinder, something that would capture hearts across the world. This is the story of how our beloved Santa Claus came to be. Before our jolly Santa emerged, children knew very different winter visitors. St. Nicholas appeared as a tall, austere bishop, draped in religious robes, carrying not toys but moral lessons. Father Christmas walked through British homes as a solemn figure representing the spirit of charity and reflection. These early gift bringers were teachers first, entertainers second. Their visits brought instruction rather than pure joy, discipline rather than delight, setting the stage for a transformation that would reshape childhood itself. Enter Thomas Nast, a brilliant illustrator whose pen would forever change Christmas. In the 1860s, working for Harper's Weekly, Nast began sketching a different kind of Santa. His drawings showed a plump, bearded man with twinkling eyes, dressed not in bishop's robes, but in fur-trimmed clothing. Nast gave Santa his workshop at the North Pole, his list of good and bad children, and most importantly, his warm, grandfatherly smile. These illustrations planted seeds in America's imagination, but it was the Coca-Cola Company that truly brought Santa to life. In the 1930s, artist Haddon Sundblom created advertisements featuring Santa enjoying a refreshing Coca-Cola. These weren't just marketing images, they were cultural blueprints. Sundblom's Santa was robust, rosy-cheeked, and unmistakably jolly. His red suit, once varying in color, became standardized. His belly shook like a bowl full of jelly. His ho-ho-ho echoed through living rooms across America, cementing our modern vision forever. The physical transformation was remarkable. The tall, thin St. Nicholas became round and cuddly. The austere bishop's robes transformed into a comfortable red suit with white fur trim. The serious expression melted into perpetual merriment. Even Santa's transportation evolved, from walking on foot or riding a horse to flying through the night sky with 8 magical reindeer. Each change made him more approachable, more magical, more perfectly suited for children's dreams and winter wonderlands. Perhaps even more dramatic was Santa's personality makeover. The stern judge who weighed children's behavior became a gentle grandfather figure. The disciplinarian who delivered switches and coal transformed into a generous gift giver. His voice, once commanding respect and sometimes fear, became warm and welcoming, filled with hearty laughter. His demeanor shifted from moral instructor to magical friend. This personality revolution would fundamentally change how children experienced Christmas morning, replacing anxiety with pure anticipation and joy. American consumer culture embraced this new Santa with unprecedented enthusiasm. Department stores began featuring Santa visits as seasonal attractions. Families lined up for photographs with the jolly figure. His image appeared on greeting cards, decorations, and countless products. Merchants discovered that Santa's endorsement could sell anything from toys to household goods. This wasn't just cultural evolution, it was a brilliant marketing phenomenon. Santa became America's most beloved spokesperson, selling not just products, but the spirit of Christmas itself. The advertising industry recognized Santa's incredible power. His trustworthy face graced magazine pages, newspaper ads, and storefront windows. Unlike stern religious figures, Santa felt safe, approachable, even friendly to adults. Advertisers realized families would welcome him into their homes through advertisements. He became the perfect ambassador for the growing consumer Christmas. His image suggested abundance, generosity, and magical fulfillment, transforming shopping from necessity into joyful anticipation. Christmas shopping became a beloved family tradition, guided by Santa's promise. Children's perception of Christmas underwent a revolutionary shift. Instead of dreading moral judgment on Christmas morning, they began counting down days with excitement. The figure who once might deliver punishment now promised wonder and surprises. Letters to Santa replaced fearful prayers. Christmas wish lists became joyful expressions of hope rather than anxious confessions. Children began seeing Christmas as their special day, filled with magic and possibilities. This transformation turned Christmas from a day of reckoning into childhood's most anticipated celebration. Family Christmas traditions evolved around this new Santa. Parents delighted in creating magical experiences, leaving out cookies and milk, helping children write letters, explaining Santa's workshop and reindeer. The mythology became elaborate and enchanting. Families developed customs around Santa's visit, some leaving carrots for reindeer, others tracking his journey around the world. These traditions brought families together in shared wonder, creating memories that parents had never experienced in their own childhoods. Christmas became a celebration of imagination and love. The commercial aspects grew more sophisticated each year. Retailers created elaborate Santa displays, complete with workshops, throne rooms, and magical settings. Shopping malls competed for the most impressive Santa experiences. Professional Santa performers trained in character development, learning to embody the jolly personality perfectly. The economics were staggering. Santa-themed merchandise generated millions in revenue. His image became so valuable that companies fought for licensing rights. Christmas shopping seasons began earlier each year, driven by Santa's commercial magnetism. This American Santa began spreading globally. Hollywood movies exported the red-suited figure worldwide. International merchants adopted Santa for their own Christmas marketing. Even countries with different gift-giving traditions began incorporating elements of the American Santa. His image transcended cultural boundaries, becoming a universal symbol of Christmas joy. Local traditions adapted, blending their customs with Santa's mythology. This wasn't cultural imperialism, but rather the infectious spread of pure happiness. Santa's appeal proved genuinely universal, crossing every border. By the 1950s, the modern Santa was fully established. His image had stabilized into the form we recognize today. Every detail was codified, from his rosy cheeks to his black boots, from his ho-ho-ho laugh to his twinkling eyes. Television specials reinforced his personality and mythology. Children's books cemented his backstory. The transformation was complete. A stern religious figure had become the world's most beloved fictional character, embodying everything wonderful about Christmas: generosity, magic, unconditional love, and childlike wonder perfectly combined. Santa's impact on Christmas was revolutionary. He shifted the holiday's focus from religious solemnity to family celebration, from moral instruction to pure joy, from adult concerns to children's happiness. Christmas became brighter, more colorful, more magical. Under his influence, the season expanded, beginning earlier and lasting longer. His presence made Christmas feel safe and wonderful for everyone, regardless of their religious background. Santa democratized Christmas, making it accessible and enjoyable for all families, creating a truly inclusive celebration of love and giving. But Santa's invention sparked another evolution, the transformation of Christmas gift giving itself. No longer were presents simple tokens or practical necessities. Under Santa's influence, gifts became expressions of magic and dreams fulfilled. The entire economy of Christmas shifted. Toy industries flourished. Gift wrapping became an art form. The psychology of giving and receiving evolved. Children's expectations grew more elaborate, and parents found themselves participating in increasingly complex gift-giving rituals, all orchestrated by our jolly, red-suited friend. And so, as we drift toward sleep, we've witnessed an extraordinary transformation. A stern bishop became a jolly grandfather. Moral instruction became magical wonder. Fearful anticipation became joyful excitement. But this evolution wasn't finished. The gift-giving traditions that Santa helped create would continue changing, adapting, growing more elaborate with each passing decade. In our next chapter, we'll explore how Christmas presents themselves evolved from simple necessities to the elaborate gift-giving culture we know today. Sweet Dreams, Chapter 7, A Stocking Evolution, From Coal to Candy. Imagine waking on Christmas morning, reaching into your stocking with trembling fingers, only to pull out a lump of coal or a bundle of birch switches. For generations of children, this was Christmas reality. The stocking hanging by the fireplace wasn't a vessel of joy, but a report card of behavior filled with symbols of disappointment and discipline. Tonight, we trace the remarkable journey from punishment to pleasure, from fear to pure delight. In the early days of Christmas stockings, parents used these humble cloth containers as tools of moral instruction. A child who had misbehaved throughout the year would find coal representing the fires of consequence. Switches meant future discipline awaited. These weren't empty threats, but tangible reminders that Christmas morning could bring judgment rather than joy. The stocking became a silent witness to a year's worth of choices, hanging heavy with the weight of accountability and childhood anxiety. But somewhere along the way, something magical began to shift. Parents noticed the terror in their children's eyes on Christmas morning, the trembling hands reaching into stockings with dread rather than excitement. The transformation didn't happen overnight, but gradually coal began to share space with small trinkets. A wooden toy might nestle beside the black lumps, offering hope alongside warning. This delicate balance marked the beginning of our modern stocking tradition, where punishment slowly gave way to possibility. Victorian families began incorporating small gifts, candy sticks, and tiny dolls into their stocking traditions. Children would wake with nervous anticipation, never quite sure what awaited them. Would they find coal for that broken window in October, or perhaps a peppermint stick for helping mother with the washing? This uncertainty created a unique Christmas morning tension where relief mingled with joy and gratitude bloomed from the simple absence of punishment. The stocking became a mysterious oracle of childhood fate. Martha remembers her grandmother's stories, told by flickering candlelight on snowy evenings. Grandmama would describe reaching into her childhood stocking, finding 3 pieces of coal, 1 candy cane, and a thimble for her sewing lessons. The coal reminded her of broken promises, but that single candy cane tasted sweeter than anything before or since. It represented hope, forgiveness, and the possibility that next year might bring more sweetness than sorrow. These mixed stockings taught complex lessons about consequence and grace. And as the 19th century progressed, parents began questioning the wisdom of fear-based Christmas traditions. Child psychology wasn't yet a formal science, but mothers noticed their little ones growing anxious as December approached. Sleep became restless, appetites diminished, and Christmas joy transformed into Christmas worry. Progressive families started eliminating coal entirely, filling stockings with nuts, fruits, small toys, and homemade treats. This shift represented a fundamental change in how families viewed childhood, Christmas, and the purpose of celebration itself. The candy revolution began with simple sugar sticks, peppermints twisted by hand in small shop windows. Confectioners discovered that Christmas created unprecedented demand for small, stocking-sized treats. Hard candies, because they wouldn't spoil during long winter months, became the perfect stocking stuffers. Children who once feared Christmas morning began counting days with excitement rather than dread. The transformation from coal to candy represented more than changing gift traditions. It marked a cultural shift toward celebrating childhood innocence rather than punishing childhood mistakes. By the early 1900s, stockings overflowed with delightful surprises. Chocolate coins wrapped in gold foil, striped candy canes, miniature toy soldiers, jacks, marbles, and small books filled the woolen containers to bursting. Children developed elaborate strategies for stocking exploration, some savoring each item slowly, others dumping everything onto their beds in gleeful abandon. Christmas morning transformed from a day of reckoning into a celebration of pure, unadulterated joy. The stocking had evolved from judgment tool to treasure chest. Thomas recalls his father's Christmas morning ritual in 1923, how Papa would wake before dawn, carefully arranging stocking contents with mathematical precision. An apple at the bottom, followed by nuts, then candy, then tiny wrapped gifts ascending toward the rim. Papa believed in the magic of anticipation, creating layers of discovery that would unfold throughout Christmas morning. Each stocking became a perfectly orchestrated symphony of surprises designed to maximize wonder and stretch the joy across precious holiday hours filled with family warmth. But what about that mysterious orange, always nestled in the toe of Christmas stockings? This tradition traces back to the legend of Saint Nicholas, who supposedly threw bags of gold through a poor widower's window. The gold landed in stockings hanging by the fire to dry. Over centuries, gold transformed into golden oranges, symbols of prosperity and generosity. In winter months, when fresh fruit was rare and precious, that single orange represented luxury, health, and the promise that spring would return with abundance and renewal. Children would save their Christmas orange for days, sometimes weeks, turning the bright fruit over in their hands like a precious jewel. The orange represented delayed gratification, teaching patience and appreciation. Some families had elaborate orange eating ceremonies where children would peel them slowly, savoring each section, sharing pieces with siblings and cousins. The orange became more than fruit. It became a lesson in treasuring life's simple pleasures and finding joy in nature's most basic gifts during winter's darkest months. Modern stockings barely resemble their austere ancestors, now bulging with chocolate bars, gift cards, electronics, and designer trinkets. Yet something profound has been lost in our abundance: the anticipation, the uncertainty, the genuine surprise, have diminished. When everything is available year round, nothing feels truly special. Perhaps our ancestors understood something we've forgotten, that scarcity creates sweetness, that waiting enhances appreciation, and that the most treasured gifts often come in the smallest, most unexpected packages, wrapped in mystery and hope. The evolution from coal to candy reflects humanity's growing understanding of childhood psychology, our recognition that fear rarely motivates positive behavior, and our desire to create joy rather than anxiety. Yet modern parents sometimes wonder if we've swung too far in the opposite direction. Without consequences, do children appreciate their blessings? Without anticipation, does abundance lose its meaning? The humble Christmas stocking holds lessons about balance between discipline and indulgence, between scarcity and plenty, between tradition and progress. As stocking traditions evolved, so did Christmas morning itself. Families began gathering around trees, sharing elaborate breakfast spreads, and creating new rituals centered on abundance rather than judgment. The shift from coal to candy paralleled broader changes in Christmas celebrations, and from somber religious observance to joyful family festival. Food became central to these celebrations, with families preparing special dishes, elaborate desserts, and festive meals that brought everyone together around tables laden with holiday abundance and warmth. Christmas cookies, originally simple treats tucked into stockings, evolved into elaborate baking traditions. Families developed signature recipes, passed down through generations like precious heirlooms. Sugar cookies cut into festive shapes, gingerbread houses that defied architectural logic, fruit cakes, dense with candied fruits and secret ingredients. These foods became part of Christmas identity, connecting families to their heritage, their memories, and their shared history of celebration. The kitchen became Christmas headquarters, filled with flour, laughter, and love, made edible through tradition. From coal filled stockings to candy laden Christmas mornings, from fear based holidays to food centered celebrations, the transformation reflects our evolving understanding of joy, generosity, and the true spirit of Christmas. Those simple stockings, hanging by countless fireplaces throughout history, witnessed humanity's journey from punishment to pleasure, from scarcity to abundance, from anxiety to anticipation. As we drift towards sleep, let us remember that the greatest gifts often come wrapped in the simplest packages, filled with love, hope, and sweet dreams. Chapter 8: Feasting and Christmas Pudding. In the warm glow of Victorian parlors, families gathered around mahogany tables laden with the season's bounty. The centerpiece of every Christmas feast, the dark, rich Christmas pudding, steeped in tradition and mystery. This wasn't merely dessert, it was ceremony, ritual, a sacred tradition passed down through generations. Tonight, we explore how one simple pudding became the heart of Victorian Christmas, binding families together through sweet, cherished customs. Months before Christmas morning, Victorian kitchens filled with the scent of dried fruits soaking in brandy, currants, raisins, candied peel, all swimming in amber pools of spirits. The pudding wasn't born on Christmas Day. It began its journey in late autumn, when families would gather ingredients from across the empire. Sugar from the Caribbean, spices from distant shores, each element carrying stories of far-off lands into the heart of the Victorian home. The ritual of stirring held deep significance in Victorian households. Each family member, from the youngest child to the eldest grandparent, would take their turn with the wooden spoon, always stirring clockwise, always making a wish, always in complete silence. The mixture grew darker with each turn, absorbing hopes and dreams along with the brandy. This sacred ceremony bound the family together, creating not just pudding, but shared memories that would last a lifetime. Victorian children watched wide-eyed as their mothers measured suet and breadcrumbs, their small hands eager to help. Even the tiniest fingers could crumble the bread or count the almonds. The kitchen became a place of wonder where ordinary ingredients transformed into something magical. Fathers would sample the mixture, nodding approvingly, while grandmothers shared secret family recipes, whispered from generation to generation. These moments, simple yet profound, wove the fabric of Victorian Christmas tradition. The Christmas feast represented far more than sustenance in Victorian society. It showcased prosperity, hospitality, and social standing. The table groaned under the weight of roasted fowl, glazed hams, and elaborate side dishes. But the pudding held special meaning. It represented continuity, tradition, the unbroken chain connecting past to present. Families who could barely afford the ingredients would still scrape together enough for their Christmas pudding because some traditions were simply too important to abandon. Each ingredient carried symbolic weight in Victorian minds. Eggs represented new life and fertility. Flowers symbolized the staff of life. Spices brought warmth and comfort from distant lands. The dark fruits, soaked in spirits, represented the richness of the earth's bounty. Mixed together, these simple elements created something greater than their individual parts, much like the Victorian family itself. The pudding became a metaphor for unity, diversity, coming together to create something beautiful and deeply meaningful. Perhaps the most delightful tradition involved hiding silver coins within the pudding mixture. Sixpences, three-penny bits, even occasionally a sovereign for the most prosperous families, all carefully wrapped in greaseproof paper before being stirred into the rich, dark batter. These hidden treasures would bring luck to whoever discovered them on Christmas Day. Children would eat their portions slowly, carefully, searching for that telltale metallic clink against their teeth, hoping to be blessed with good fortune. The silver coin tradition carried deeper meaning than simple luck. Finding a coin meant prosperity in the coming year. Finding two suggested marriage, while finding none, well, that simply meant trying harder next year. Victorian servants would sometimes receive an extra coin if they found one, a small Christmas bonus wrapped in pudding. The coins connected the family to broader economic prosperity, turning dessert into a gentle form of divination, a sweet glimpse into fortune's favor. Once mixed and blessed with wishes, the pudding faced its long, slow transformation. Wrapped in cloth and tied with string, it would steam for hours in great copper boilers. The kitchen filled with aromatic clouds, rich with spices and spirits. Cook would tend the pot carefully, adding water as needed, ensuring the pudding cooked evenly. This wasn't mere cooking, it was alchemy, transforming simple ingredients into something transcendent, something that would grace the Christmas table with dignity and delight. The waiting period tested Victorian patience like nothing else. Weeks would pass, the pudding aging like fine wine in cool pantries. Children would ask daily about its progress, sneaking peeks at the cloth-wrapped bundle hanging in the larder. The anticipation built slowly, steadily, until Christmas Day finally arrived. The longer the wait, the sweeter the reward. This delayed gratification taught Victorian families the value of patience, the beauty of anticipation, the reward that comes from waiting for truly special moments. Christmas Day brought the pudding's moment of glory, Unwrapped from its steaming cloth, it emerged dark and gleaming, studded with jewel-like fruits. The final touch, a sprig of holly on top, and sometimes a small figure or charm. Then came the brandy, poured generously over the surface, and set alight. Blue flames danced across the pudding's surface, creating a moment of pure magic. Victorian dining rooms fell silent, mesmerized by this edible firework, the sweet finale to their Christmas feast. The family gathered closer as the flames subsided, their faces glowing in the warm light. Victorian Christmas pudding was served with ceremony, befitting its importance. The head of household would carve the first slice, making sure everyone received their fair portion. Custard or brandy butter accompanied each serving, adding richness to an already indulgent dessert. Conversation flowed as freely as the brandy, stories shared, memories created, another layer added to the family's Christmas tradition, building bonds that would last throughout the year. Around the laden table, Victorian families shared more than food, they shared stories. Grandparents recounted Christmases past, parents spoke of hopes for the future, children listened with wide eyes and fuller bellies. The pudding served as more than dessert, it became a catalyst for connection. Each bite carried the weight of tradition, the warmth of family bonds, the sweetness of belonging. These shared meals, simple yet profound, created the foundation upon which Victorian Christmas memories were built, one spoonful at a time. As the last crumbs of pudding disappeared, the family naturally gravitated toward the hearth. The dining room, though warm and festive, couldn't match the magnetic pull of the fireplace. Here, in the soft glow of burning logs, the evening would continue. The heavy meal made everyone drowsy, content, ready for the gentler pleasures that awaited. The transition from feast to fireside happened gradually, naturally, like the changing of seasons, drawing the family into the heart of their Victorian Christmas evening. The hearth beckoned with its warm golden glow, casting dancing shadows across the parlor walls. Victorian families would arrange themselves around the fire, parents in their favorite chairs, children sprawled on thick rugs, everyone basking in the radiant heat. The flames flickered hypnotically, creating the perfect atmosphere for what came next. Outside, winter winds might howl and snow might fall, but inside, wrapped in warmth and contentment, the Victorian family prepared for one of their most cherished Christmas traditions, the sharing of beloved Yuletide carols. The firelight danced across expectant faces, setting the stage for an evening of musical tradition. Someone would quietly clear their throat, perhaps hum a familiar melody, and soon voices would join together in harmony. The Christmas feast had nourished their bodies, but now, gathered around the glowing hearth, they would nourish their spirits. The pudding, the coins, the family bonds, all had led to this moment when Victorian voices would rise together, filling their home with the timeless melodies of Christmas, creating memories that would warm them long after the fire had died to glowing embers. Chapter 9: Carolers in the Snow. Picture the Victorian village square on a crisp December evening, snow falling gently on cobblestones as lanterns cast their warm golden glow. From the distance, you hear the first notes of a familiar melody, voices harmonizing in the frosty air. These brave carolers have ventured out into the winter night, carrying centuries-old traditions through the quiet streets, their breath visible in small clouds as they sing. The tradition of Christmas caroling reaches back through generations, born from ancient was, sailing customs where villagers would sing to fruit trees and offer cider to ensure good harvests. By the Victorian era, this had evolved into something more refined, more melodic. Groups of singers would gather on street corners, their voices blending together like warm honey, spreading joy through the darkest nights of winter, one song at a time. Listen closely. Can you hear the gentle strains of Silent Night drifting through the evening air? The melody was still quite new in Victorian times, composed just decades earlier in Austria, but already it had found its way into the hearts of English carolers, who sang it with such tenderness, such reverence. Their voices would rise and fall like gentle waves, carrying peace through the snow-covered streets, touching every window, every doorway. The carolers wore their finest winter coats, heavy wool cloaks that brushed against their ankles as they walked. Women wrapped thick shawls around their shoulders, while men donned top hats that collected snowflakes like tiny stars. Children bundled in scarves and mittens would skip alongside, their small voices adding sweetness to the choir, their cheeks pink from the cold, their eyes bright with excitement and wonder. The villagers would gather around their frost-covered windows, drawn by the beautiful harmonies floating through the night. Candlelight flickered behind glass panes, creating a warm backdrop as families pressed close to listen. Some would open their doors, inviting the carolers inside for hot cider or steaming cups of tea, but many simply stood in their doorways, smiling as the music washed over them like a gentle blessing. Angels, we have heard on high, would echo through the square, the Gloria in Excelsis soaring high above the rooftops. The carolers' breath created small clouds that danced with each note, their voices growing stronger as more villagers joined in from doorways and windows. The ancient Latin phrases rolled off their tongues like prayers, each word carrying centuries of tradition, each melody a thread connecting them to generations past and future. Sometimes a violin would accompany the singers, its strings vibrating in the cold air, adding layers of beauty to the already rich harmonies. The violinist would stand slightly apart, bow moving gracefully across the strings, creating melodies that seemed to dance with the falling snow. Other times, a small accordion would provide the musical foundation, its gentle wheezing breath perfectly matching the winter night, creating music that felt both earthly and divine. The first Noel would begin softly, almost whispered, then grow in volume as more voices joined. Born, born, the King of Israel. The words would ring out across the village, each repetition building on the last. Children would peek out from behind heavy curtains, their faces pressed against cold window panes, watching the carolers with wide-eyed wonder, as if witnessing something magical, something that happened only in storybooks and dreams. Between songs, the carolers would pause, allowing the peaceful silence to settle over the village like a soft blanket. You could hear the gentle crunch of snow under their feet, the distant chiming of church bells, the whisper of wind through bare tree branches. These quiet moments were just as precious as the music, allowing everyone to absorb the beauty, to feel the magic settling deep into their hearts, preparing for the next melody. Hark the herald, angels sing, would burst forth with joyful energy, the carolers' faces glowing with happiness as they proclaimed the good news to all who would listen. Their voices would ring with confidence and celebration, echoing off the stone buildings, bouncing between narrow alleyways, carrying hope through every corner of the village. Even the oldest residents would find themselves humming along, remembering their own childhood Christmas mornings, when angels seemed real and close. As the evening grew later, the carolers would move through smaller streets, visiting the homes of the elderly and infirm who couldn't venture out into the cold. They would sing more softly here, their voices gentle as lullabies, bringing comfort to those who needed it most. These intimate performances were perhaps the most beautiful, voices blending in perfect harmony under bedroom windows, carrying love through the darkness, one note at a time. "O come, all you faithful," would begin with one clear voice, then others would join, each adding their own unique tone to the growing tapestry of sound. "O come, let us adore him," the invitation extended to every listener, every passerby, every soul who needed to feel connected to something greater. The melody would swell and recede like ocean waves, washing over the village with warmth despite the frigid winter air, creating moments of pure transcendence. The snow continued falling throughout their journey, dusting their shoulders and collecting on their songbooks, but the carolers never faltered. Their dedication to this ancient tradition kept them warm from within, their shared purpose creating bonds stronger than the winter cold. They knew that their music was a gift, not just entertainment, but something sacred, something that could transform an ordinary December evening into something extraordinary, something remembered for lifetimes. As midnight approached, the carolers would gather one final time in the village center, their voices joining for a last chorus of joy to the world. The church bells would chime the hour, mixing with their harmonies, creating a symphony that seemed to rise straight to heaven. Villagers would lean from their windows, some holding candles that flickered like tiny stars, all united in this moment of pure musical magic, this celebration of community and faith. Slowly, one by one, the carolers would begin their journey home, their voices growing fainter as they disappeared into the snowy streets, but their melodies lingered in the air, echoing softly off the buildings, settling into the hearts of everyone who heard them. The village would fall quiet, but not empty, filled instead with the residual warmth of shared music, shared joy, the kind of peace that only comes from voices raised together in harmony. And so the Victorian tradition of caroling would end for another evening, but its magic would continue through the long winter night, in the dreams of children who heard angels singing, in the hearts of adults who remembered being children themselves, in the quiet hum of melodies that would carry them gently into sleep, where Christmas carols and snow-covered villages danced together in perfect, peaceful harmony. Chapter 10, Yule Logs and Quiet Reflections. Now we turn our attention to one of winter's most sacred rituals, the burning of the Yule log. Picture this ancient ceremony, flames dancing against the darkness, casting warm shadows across weathered faces. Tonight, we'll discover how this pagan tradition found its way into Victorian parlors, transforming from mystical ritual into cherished family custom. The soft hiss and crackle of burning wood tells stories spanning centuries, whispering secrets of solstice celebrations long forgotten. Long before Christmas trees adorned Victorian homes, our ancestors gathered around massive logs, carefully selected from oak or ash trees. These weren't ordinary pieces of firewood, they were sacred vessels, chosen with reverence during the darkest days of winter. The log had to burn continuously from Christmas Eve through Twelfth Night, never allowed to die completely. Families would save a charred piece, keeping it safe throughout the year, ready to kindle next winter's flame with blessed fire from seasons past. The origins reach back to ancient pagan festivals when our ancestors feared the sun might never return. They believed the Yule log possessed magical properties, capable of protecting homes from evil spirits, ensuring fertility for crops, and bringing prosperity to the household. Celtic druids would bless these logs, sprinkling them with wine and honey, while Germanic tribes carved protective runes into the bark, each symbol a prayer against the long winter darkness. As Christianity spread across Europe, the Church wisely adapted, rather than abolished, these beloved customs. The Yule log transformed, becoming a symbol of Christ's light entering the world, the eternal flame representing divine presence in earthly homes. Medieval monks blessed the logs, teaching that the continuous burning symbolized the everlasting nature of faith, while the warmth represented God's love, embracing faithful families throughout the coldest months. By Victorian times, the Yule log had evolved into a refined domestic ritual, no longer requiring massive logs that took 6 men to carry. Victorian families embraced smaller, more manageable traditions. The ceremony moved from grand halls into cozy parlors, where gas lighted rooms provided perfect settings for intimate family gatherings. Children would help select the perfect log, learning from their parents about patience, reverence, and the importance of maintaining sacred flames. Victorian households approached the Yule log ceremony with characteristic precision and sentiment. The chosen log, often decorated with ribbons and evergreen sprigs, would be ceremoniously carried into the drawing room. Father would light it using a saved fragment from last year's log, while Mother gathered the children close. The first flames would dance upward, casting golden light across expectant faces as the family settled in for their annual vigil of warmth and wonder. Listen to the gentle sounds that filled those Victorian parlors, the soft hiss of sap meeting flame, the gentle crackle of bark catching fire, the quiet settling of logs as they found their perfect burning position. These weren't harsh sounds, but whispered conversations between wood and fire, ancient dialogues that spoke of transformation, of giving and receiving, of the eternal dance between earth's gifts and heaven's spark of light. Around the burning log, Victorian families created their most cherished memories. Grandmother would share stories of Christmases past, her voice barely above a whisper, competing gently with the fire's soft murmurs. Children would lean against their parents, watching flames paint ever-changing pictures on the ceiling, while the sweet scent of burning oak filled their senses, creating olfactory memories that would last lifetimes, connecting them forever to these peaceful moments. The quiet murmurs of family conversation blended perfectly with the log's gentle sounds. These weren't loud celebrations, but intimate gatherings where voices naturally softened, where stories unfolded slowly, where time seemed suspended in amber firelight. Parents would speak of gratitude, children would share their hopes, while the Yule log burned steadily, bearing witness to these sacred exchanges, transforming ordinary evenings into extraordinary memories through the simple act of shared warmth. Victorian children learned patience through the Yule log tradition, discovering that the most beautiful flames required time to develop. They watched small sparks grow into steady fires, understanding that consistent tending produced the most reliable warmth. These lessons extended beyond the hearth, teaching young minds about perseverance, about nurturing relationships, about the rewards that come from steady, patient care, values that served them well throughout their lives as they faced their own challenges. The serene atmosphere created by burning Yule logs provided perfect conditions for quiet reflection. As flames danced hypnotically, family members would naturally fall into contemplative moods, thinking about the year behind them, the year ahead, the blessings they'd received, the relationships they treasured. The fire's gentle warmth seemed to soften hearts, encouraging forgiveness, promoting understanding, creating space for the kind of deep conversations that strengthen family bonds across generations. Victorian parlors glowed with more than just firelight. During Yule log ceremonies, they radiated contentment, satisfaction, the deep peace that comes from being surrounded by loved ones, sharing in ancient traditions that connected them to countless generations before them. The burning log served as both anchor and bridge, grounding them in present moment joy, while linking them to the eternal cycle of seasons, celebrations, and the enduring power of family traditions. As the evening progressed, the Yule log's flames would settle into steady rhythmic patterns, creating natural lullabies for drowsy children. The fire's warmth spread beyond the hearth, filling hearts with contentment, minds with peaceful thoughts, souls with the deep satisfaction that comes from participating in something larger than themselves. These moments of quiet communion, family gathered in firelight, represent the very essence of what made Victorian Christmases so memorable and meaningful. The gentle crackling of the Yule log provided the perfect soundtrack for Victorian family togetherness. No harsh voices or boisterous laughter disturbed these sacred moments, only the soft rustling of turning pages, the quiet whisper of shared confidences, the contented sighs of family members at perfect peace. The fire's warmth embraced them all, creating a cocoon of comfort where love could flourish, where memories crystallized into treasures they'd carry forever, where ordinary moments became extraordinary simply through shared presence. As our Victorian families settled deeper into their Yule log vigils, they unknowingly participated in humanity's oldest forms of meditation. The dancing flames provided focal points for wandering minds. The fire's warmth relaxed tense muscles. The gentle sounds created natural mantras for peaceful hearts. These families discovered what their ancestors had always known, that fire possesses healing properties, that shared warmth multiplies joy, that simple rituals can transform ordinary evenings into sacred ceremonies. And so the Yule log burns on in our memories, its gentle flame illuminating the beauty of simple traditions, the power of patient rituals, the magic that happens when families gather in quiet reverence. As these Victorian parlors filled with firelight and soft murmurs, they created sanctuaries of peace in a rapidly changing world. Now, as our log settles into glowing embers, we prepare to discover other cherished customs, traditions that might surprise you, hidden gems waiting in our next chapter. Chapter 11, Boxing Day, Charity and Servitude. The day after Christmas holds secrets most people never discover, a hidden world of Victorian tradition where servants waited patiently for their one precious gift of the year. While families feasted on Christmas Day, the hired help served in silence, knowing their moment would come when the sun rose on December 26th. This is the story of Boxing Day, where charity met servitude in the most unexpected ways. Picture a grand Victorian manor on Christmas morning. The wealthy family gathers around their tree, while servants work tirelessly in the background, preparing meals, tending fires, ensuring every comfort is met. But these invisible hands, these tireless workers, they too had Christmas dreams. Boxing Day emerged as their compensation, their single day of recognition, when masters acknowledged the people who made their comfortable lives possible through quiet dedication and endless labor. The name Boxing Day itself tells a story of class and kindness intertwined. Masters would prepare boxes filled with leftover food, small gifts, perhaps a few coins, tokens of appreciation for a year of faithful service. These weren't elaborate presents, but they represented something precious, acknowledgement of humanity across class lines. Servants would finally receive their Christmas, delayed but not forgotten, wrapped in the understanding that their work mattered to those they served so faithfully. But Boxing Day extended beyond the manor walls. Churches encouraged wealthy parishioners to remember the poor, to fill charity boxes with donations for those who had nothing. The wealthy would venture into working class neighborhoods, their carriages loaded with food and warm clothing, distributing necessities to families struggling through harsh Victorian winters. This tradition transformed December 26th into a day of compassion, where social barriers temporarily dissolved through acts of deliberate kindness and charitable giving. The servants themselves developed their own Boxing Day rituals. Many would finally visit their own families, carrying their precious boxes home to share with loved ones they rarely saw. These reunions were bittersweet, filled with joy at being together, yet shadowed by the knowledge that duty would soon call them back to their employers' homes. Their Boxing Day gifts often became family treasures, carefully preserved reminders of their sacrifice and the small kindnesses that made their service bearable. The tradition revealed the complex dance between gratitude and guilt that defined Victorian society. Wealthy families genuinely wanted to show appreciation, yet they also understood that these gifts helped maintain the system that depended on cheap labor. Boxing Day became a safety valve, a way to acknowledge inequality without fundamentally changing it. The gifts were generous enough to inspire loyalty, modest enough to preserve hierarchy, creating a delicate balance between conscience and convenience in the rigid class structure. Children in wealthy households often participated in Boxing Day preparations, learning early about their responsibilities to those less fortunate. They would help pack boxes, select items for donation, and sometimes accompany their parents on charitable visits. These experiences shaped young minds, teaching them that privilege came with obligations, that comfort should be shared with those who made it possible. The children learned compassion through action, understanding that true nobility lay in remembering others during times of abundance and celebration. The working classes also embraced Boxing Day traditions, though their resources were limited. Factory workers would pool small amounts to help neighbors facing particular hardships. Shopkeepers offered discounts or free goods to struggling customers. Communities organized simple gatherings where everyone contributed something, however small. These grassroots efforts proved that charity wasn't just the privilege of the wealthy, it was a human instinct that transcended economic circumstances, a reminder that kindness could flourish even in poverty. Boxing Day meals held special significance in servant halls across Britain. After months of preparing elaborate dishes for their employers, servants finally enjoyed their own feast, modest but meaningful. They would share stories of their families, sing carols together, and for one precious day, feel less like workers and more like a chosen family. These gatherings created bonds that sustained them through the lonely months ahead, proving that even in servitude, human connection and community could bloom in unexpected places. The postal system played a unique role in Boxing Day traditions. Mailmen, who worked tirelessly delivering Christmas cards and packages, expected small tips from grateful customers on December 26th. This practice acknowledged that even public servants deserved recognition for their extra efforts during the holiday season. Households would prepare small envelopes of coins, expressing appreciation for reliable service throughout the year. These gestures created a web of gratitude that extended beyond private homes into public service and community connection. Religious leaders used Boxing Day sermons to remind congregations of their Christian duty to the less fortunate. They preached that true Christmas spirit continued beyond December 25th, that the birth of Christ called believers to ongoing acts of charity and compassion. Churches organized special collections, distributed food to hungry families, and encouraged wealthy members to open their hearts and purses to those in need. These spiritual messages transformed Boxing Day from mere tradition into moral imperative, making charity a sacred responsibility. Some Victorian employers went beyond simple gift giving, offering their servants entire days off, rare opportunities for freedom and personal time. Servants might attend Boxing Day fairs, visit markets, or simply walk through town without the weight of constant duty. These moments of liberation were precious, allowing hardworking people to remember who they were beyond their service roles. The gift of time and freedom often meant more than any material present, representing respect for their humanity and individual worth. Boxing Day also became associated with traditional sports and entertainment. Village boxing matches, hunting parties, and community games provided wholesome recreation after the solemnity of Christmas Day. These activities brought different social classes together in shared enjoyment, temporarily setting aside the rigid hierarchies that normally govern their interactions. Servants might compete alongside their employers, creating moments of equality through sport and laughter, proving that joy could bridge even the widest social divides when people gathered in celebration. As the Victorian era evolved, Boxing Day traditions began to shift and adapt. The Industrial Revolution changed employment patterns, but the spirit of post-Christmas giving persisted. Workers in factories and shops still expected recognition, communities continued organizing charitable efforts, and families maintained the practice of helping those less fortunate. The specific customs might alter with changing times, but the underlying values of gratitude, charity, and human connection remained constant, proving that some traditions touch something eternal in the human spirit. Today, Boxing Day survives in various forms around the world. In Britain, it remains a public holiday marked by sporting events and family gatherings. In Canada and Australia, similar traditions continue, while other countries have adopted their own versions of post-Christmas charity and gift-giving. The Victorian emphasis on helping servants and the poor has evolved into modern charitable drives, food bank donations, and volunteer work, proving that the impulse to share abundance after Christmas celebration remains deeply ingrained in human nature. The legacy of Boxing Day reminds us that true holiday spirit extends beyond our own celebrations. It calls us to remember those who serve, those who struggle, and those who make our comfortable lives possible through their often invisible labor. In our modern world, we can honor this tradition by expressing gratitude to service workers, contributing to charitable causes, and ensuring that the joy of Christmas season reaches beyond our own families to touch the lives of others who need recognition, kindness, and hope. Chapter 12, Twelfth Night, the final festivity. As January's cold breath whispers through frost-covered Victorian windows, families gather for one last magical celebration of the season. Twelfth Night arrives like a gentle goodbye to Christmas, bringing with it ancient customs that have danced through countless centuries. Tonight, we explore these tender traditions, the crowning of kings and queens, the mystical wassailing of apple trees, and the sweet anticipation of that special cake hiding its precious treasure within. In Victorian parlors warmed by crackling fires, the evening begins with anticipation thick as winter fog. Children peer through lace curtains at the darkening sky, knowing tonight holds something different, something ancient. The Twelfth Night celebration marks the final crescendo of their beloved Christmas season. Soon, ordinary days will return, but for now, magic still dances in the shadows. Candlelight flickers across excited faces as families prepare for customs passed down through generations of loving hands. The centerpiece of tonight's celebration sits proudly on the dining table, a magnificent Twelfth Night cake, golden and fragrant with spices from distant lands. Hidden within its tender crumb lies a single dried bean and a precious pea. These tiny treasures will crown tonight's king and queen, not through birthright or wealth, but through the gentle hand of fate. Victorian families gather around this sweet symbol of democracy, where servants might rule and children command their elders. With reverent hands, the cake is divided into careful portions. Each slice holds the possibility of transformation, the chance to become royalty for one magical evening. The room falls silent, except for the soft whisper of knife through cake and the gentle crackle of hearth flames. Victorian etiquette momentarily dissolves as everyone examines their portion with childlike wonder. Who will bite down upon that precious bean? Who will discover the tiny pea that grants queenly power for this sacred night? A delighted gasp pierces the quiet young Mary. Has found the bean. Her cheeks flush pink with joy as the family proclaims her king of the evening. Across the table, elderly grandmother's eyes twinkle as she discovers the pea between her teeth. Queen for the night, the newly crowned royalty don paper crowns, while their subjects bow with theatrical flourishes. Tonight, the natural order sweetly inverts. Children command adults, servants direct masters, and laughter fills every corner of the Victorian home. The royal court issues their gentle decrees. Perhaps the governess must sing a silly song, or father must perform a dramatic recitation from memory. These playful commands bring the family together in ways that rigid Victorian propriety rarely allows. Laughter bubbles up like champagne as dignity temporarily takes leave. The king and queen reign with kindness, understanding that their power lasts only until midnight strikes, when ordinary roles will return with the dawn of a new day. But the evening's magic extends beyond the warmth of parlor walls. Outside in the frost-kissed orchard, another ancient ritual awaits. Victorian families bundle into heavy coats and venture into the night air, carrying steaming bowls of wassail, a warm, spiced cider that promises prosperity to the coming year. The apple trees stand silent and bare against the starlit sky, their branches reaching upward like grateful arms, waiting to receive this generous blessing from human hands. The wassailing ceremony begins with solemn reverence. Families circle the largest, oldest apple tree in their orchard, the mother tree that has given fruit for countless seasons. Steam rises from their bowls like incense as they prepare to honor this faithful provider. Children watch with wide eyes as father lifts the wassail high, speaking ancient words of gratitude and hope. Tonight, they bridge the gap between human and nature, between season's end and spring's promise, waiting patiently in frozen soil. With ceremonial care, the warm wassail is poured around the tree's base, soaking into the hard-packed earth. The family joins hands, forming a circle of connection around their leafless guardian. Their voices rise in traditional wassailing songs, melodies that have blessed orchards for centuries beyond counting. They sing of abundance, of gratitude, of the endless cycle that brings spring after winter's rest. The apple tree seems to listen, its bare branches swaying gently in the night breeze, like arms raised in blessing. Some Victorian families add another element to their wassailing ritual, the gentle hanging of toast pieces upon the branches. These offerings serve as gifts for the spirits who guard the orchard through winter's darkest months. Children stretch on tiptoes, carefully placing bread upon twigs with the solemnity of priests making sacred offerings. The toast will remain throughout winter, a visible promise of the family's faith in spring's eventual return and the tree's generous awakening. Back inside the warm embrace of their home, the family settles into quiet reflection. The evening celebrations have filled their hearts with contentment as deep as winter snow. Candles burn lower in their holders, casting longer shadows across familiar faces. The 12th night cake sits partially consumed, its mission fulfilled, its hidden treasures discovered, its democratic magic shared among loved ones. Soon, these festive remnants will be cleared away, leaving only sweet memories and the promise of seasons yet to come. In the gentle glow of dying embers, Victorian parents tuck their children into bed with extra tenderness. Tomorrow will bring the return of ordinary routines, lessons and chores, work and responsibility. But tonight's magic has woven itself into family memory, creating golden threads that will warm future winters. The children drift toward sleep with visions of paper crowns and wassailed trees, of cake and ceremony, of the beautiful democracy that transforms servants into kings beneath Twelfth Night's benevolent stars. As the house settles into peaceful quiet, something profound has shifted in the rhythm of their days. The intense magic of Christmas season slowly dissolves like sugar in warm tea, leaving behind a subtle sweetness that will sustain them through ordinary months ahead. Victorian families understand that life moves in cycles. Celebration gives way to contemplation, feasting yields to fasting, community gatherings make solitary moments more precious. They embrace this natural ebb and flow with grace born of generations. The 12th night celebration serves as a gentle bridge between worlds, between sacred and secular, between winter's depth and spring's distant promise. Victorian hearts, so often bound by propriety and convention, have found freedom in ancient rituals that honor both hierarchy and its playful reversal. They've touched something timeless tonight, something that connects them to centuries of families who've gathered around similar tables, shared similar hopes, offered similar gratitude to the turning wheel of seasons. In bedchambers throughout the house, family members drift into contented sleep with Twelfth Night's blessings settling over them like soft blankets. They've honored the old ways, connected with nature's rhythms, celebrated the beautiful democracy of chance and community. Their dreams will be filled with wassail-blessed orchards and paper crowns, with the laughter of overturned expectations and the warmth of shared traditions. Tomorrow brings new chapters, but tonight belongs to the ancient magic of Twelfth Night's final, perfect festivity. And so our Victorian Christmas season draws to its gentle close, like the final notes of a beloved lullaby fading into peaceful silence. The 12th night has offered its gifts: community, tradition, the sweet democracy of shared celebration. Soon, ordinary days will return with their familiar rhythms, but the magic woven through these 12 sacred nights remains tucked away in memory's treasure chest, waiting to warm future winters with its golden glow. Until seasons turn again, rest well, dream sweetly. Chapter 13, The Ghost of Christmas Past. Tonight, we drift through the mists of memory, where Christmas echoes whisper across centuries, from the darkest fears of Victorian children to the warmest embraces of modern families. We've witnessed transformation. How did a day of dread become our most beloved celebration? Let these gentle currents carry you as we revisit the threads we've woven, the stories we've shared, the evolution of wonder itself. Close your eyes and feel the timeline stretching like ripples on still water. Each tradition we've explored sends waves through history, The stern-faced St. Nicholas we once knew, slowly softening into Santa's gentle smile. The coal and switches that once filled stockings, gradually replaced by treats and treasures, each generation choosing love over fear, kindness over punishment, hope over discipline, transformation happening one Christmas at a time. Remember the Victorian parlors we visited, where children trembled before wrapped packages, uncertain whether gifts or consequences awaited. Those same rooms now glow with different energy. Laughter replaces anxiety. Anticipation replaces dread. The very walls seem to exhale relief, as if the house itself learned to celebrate. These spaces hold memory, witnessing centuries of Christmas mornings, each one brighter than the last, each one more filled with love. The ghost of Christmas past whispers through our modern traditions. Can you hear it? In the way we still hang stockings, though fear no longer fills them, in the way we still gather for feasts, though judgment no longer seasons the meal, in the ritual of gift giving, now pure joy, once weighted with moral lessons. These echoes remind us how far we've traveled, how much we've transformed, while keeping the beauty. Think of the Christmas trees we've explored together, from the modest candlelit branches of centuries past to today's glowing centerpieces. Each ornament tells a story, each tradition carries forward the best of what came before, while leaving behind what no longer serves. The evergreen remains, constant through change, rooted in earth, reaching toward light, just as our celebrations have grown toward love. The carols we sing tonight carry melodies from those earlier Christmases. But listen closely. The words have shifted from songs of warning and judgment to hymns of peace and goodwill. The same voices, the same harmonies, but the message transformed. Children no longer sing to ward off punishment. They sing to welcome wonder. Music itself, evolving with our hearts, growing gentler, growing kinder, growing more beautiful. Imagine the kitchens we've wandered through, Victorian servants preparing elaborate meals under watchful eyes, measuring not just ingredients, but worthiness, behavior, deservingness. Now picture modern kitchens filled with voluntary helpers, seasoning dishes with laughter, sharing recipes like gifts. The transformation from obligation to celebration, from earning Christmas to simply receiving it with open hearts and grateful hands. The letters to Santa, once formal requests, carefully crafted to prove good behavior, now spontaneous wishes, innocent dreams scribbled with crayons, sealed with hope rather than fear. Children no longer write to convince, they write to share, to dream, to connect. This shift, from performance to authenticity, from earning to deserving, from fear to trust, marks our greatest Christmas transformation, our greatest gift to future generations. Feel the warmth of Christmas morning spreading across centuries. What once chilled hearts with uncertainty now melts them with love. The same sunrise, the same winter air, but everything changed. Children run toward Christmas trees, not away from them. Parents smile with anticipation, not worry. The energy itself transformed from anxiety to joy, from judgment to acceptance, from conditional love to unconditional celebration. The stockings still hang, but no longer heavy with coal. Instead, they overflow with small delights, tiny treasures, sweet surprises, the evolution from punishment to pleasure, from correction to connection. The same tradition, completely transformed. Children reach in with eager hands, not trembling fingers, finding joy, not judgment, candy, not coal, love, not lessons. This simple shift, changing everything, changing Christmas itself. Walk with me through memory's corridors where Christmas spirits of every era mingle and dance. The stern St. Nicholas gradually learning to smile, the fearsome gift bringer softening into Santa's embrace, the harsh winter celebration warming into cozy family gatherings, each ghost of Christmas past, teaching the next generation how to love more, fear less, celebrate deeper, give freer, transform together. The wreaths on our doors, still circular, still evergreen, but their meaning transformed. Once protection from evil spirits, now welcome signs for loved ones. Once barriers, now invitations. The same pine boughs, the same red ribbons, but radiating different energy, from warding off to welcoming in, from fear-based to love-based, from defensive to embracing. These symbols evolving with our hearts, growing gentler, growing warmer, growing more inclusive. Listen to the whispers of Christmas future built on the foundation of Christmas past. Every tradition we've softened, every fear we've transformed into love, becomes legacy, becomes gift for children not yet born, Christmas mornings not yet dawned. The evolution continues through us, through our choices, through our celebrations. Each act of kindness, each moment of joy, writing new chapters in Christmas's ongoing story. The magic we've discovered together wasn't in the coal, or the switches, or the fearsome figures. The real magic was always in the transformation, always in the capacity for traditions to grow, for hearts to soften, for celebrations to become more loving, more inclusive, more joyful. This magic lives in every Christmas present that was once Christmas past, in every tradition that chose love over fear. As we near the end of our Christmas journey together, feel the continuity flowing through all we've shared, from winter solstice celebrations to modern family gatherings, from stern moral lessons to unconditional love. The thread remains unbroken, but the tapestry grows ever more beautiful, each generation adding their own colors, their own patterns, their own interpretation of what Christmas can become when guided by love. The ghost of Christmas past isn't haunting, it's healing. It's showing us how far we've come, how much we've grown, how beautifully traditions can transform when touched by love. Rest now in the warmth of this knowing that Christmas, like us, like love itself, continues evolving, continues growing, continues becoming more wonderful with each passing year, each passing generation, each act of Christmas kindness. Chapter 14, The Ghost of Christmas Present. Step into your living room this Christmas morning. Look around at the familiar scene, the tree with its twinkling lights, stockings hung by the fireplace, the warm scent of cinnamon and pine filling the air. What you're seeing, what you're feeling, is the Victorian Christmas dream made real. These traditions didn't disappear with gaslight and carriages. They evolved, adapted, and found their way into our modern celebrations with remarkable persistence. The Christmas stocking hanging by your fireplace, that simple cloth pouch, carries within it centuries of hope and tradition. Victorian children would creep downstairs on Christmas morning, hearts pounding, wondering what St. Nicholas had left behind. Today's children feel that same electric anticipation, that same mixture of excitement and nervousness. The ritual remains unchanged, only the contents have grown kinder, more generous, reflecting our evolved understanding of childhood wonder. Listen carefully, and you might hear the echoes of Victorian carolers in today's neighborhood singers. The same melodies drift through December air, Silent Night, O Come All Ye Faithful, Joy to the World. These songs carried families through long winter evenings in gaslit parlors, and now they accompany us through shopping centers and living rooms. The voices change, the technology evolves, but the human need to share music during dark December nights remains beautifully constant. Your Christmas dinner table, laden with roasted meats, sweet puddings, and gathered family, mirrors scenes from Dickens' own Christmas celebrations. The Victorians elevated the Christmas feast from simple sustenance to elaborate ritual, creating traditions we still honor today. The turkey, the stuffing, the cranberry sauce, even the way we arrange our chairs in a circle of warmth and conversation. These customs traveled through time to reach your modern table, unchanged. The Christmas tree in your corner, adorned with lights and ornaments, stands as perhaps the most visible Victorian legacy in our homes. Prince Albert's German tradition, embraced by Queen Victoria, spread through British society and across oceans to America. Those first simple candles became electric bulbs. Those handmade decorations became mass produced ornaments. But the tree itself remains the same symbol of life, persisting through winter darkness, hope glowing in our homes. Gift giving, that central Christmas ritual, transformed dramatically from its Victorian origins, yet maintains the same essential spirit. Where Victorian children might receive an orange, a simple toy, or educational book, today's presents overflow from beneath trees in colorful abundance. But the moment of exchange, the careful watching of faces, the joy in giving, these emotional experiences remain identical across the centuries, proving some human instincts transcend material change. The Christmas cards resting on your mantle, those folded wishes of seasonal joy, began as a Victorian innovation that revolutionized holiday communication. Sir Henry Cole's simple illustrated greeting in 1843 became millions of cards crossing continents each December. Today we send electronic wishes, text messages, social media greetings, but we're still fulfilling that same Victorian impulse to reach out, to connect, to remind distant friends they're remembered during this special season. Your holiday decorations, the garland, the wreaths, the ribbons and bows echo the elaborate Victorian home transformations that turned ordinary parlors into Christmas wonderlands. They draped evergreen bows, hung holly, created elaborate tableaus that transported families into festive fantasy. We continue this practice, filling our homes with seasonal beauty, creating atmosphere that says, here, in this space, something magical is happening, something worth celebrating together. The Christmas pudding, that rich, dense, fruit-laden dessert, still graces some holiday tables, carrying forward Victorian traditions of shared preparation and ceremonial serving. Families would stir the mixture together, each making a wish, then lighted a flame on Christmas Day. Even if you serve different desserts, the ritual of special holiday foods, prepared with care, shared with love, maintains that same spirit of celebration the Victorians cherished. Sweetness, marking special moments. Christmas morning, that magical threshold between anticipation and fulfillment, unfolds today much as it did in Victorian households. Children wake early, tiptoeing through quiet halls, hearts racing with possibility. Parents gather, coffee in hand, watching small faces discover wrapped surprises. The technology changes, the wrapping paper evolves, but that moment of pure joy, of family gathered in pajamas and morning light, remains timelessly Victorian in its emphasis on home, family, and shared wonder. The Christmas story, whether told through religious services, family readings, or holiday films, continues the Victorian tradition of using narrative to bind communities together during winter's darkest days. They gathered around fireplaces for recitations. We gather around screens for movies, but we're all seeking the same thing: stories that remind us why this season matters, why celebrating together makes the darkness brighter, why hope persists through every winter. Your neighborhood Christmas lights, those brilliant displays that transform December evenings into wonderlands, evolved from Victorian candles flickering in parlor windows. What began as simple illumination, a beacon of warmth and welcome, became elaborate celebrations of light conquering darkness. Each bulb, each glowing display, each lit window continues that Victorian message: here lives hope, here celebrates life, here darkness cannot win, here community shines bright against winter's shadow. The act of charitable giving, so central to modern Christmas spirit, follows directly in Victorian footsteps. They established soup kitchens, distributed coal to the poor, created charitable societies to ensure everyone could celebrate. Today's toy drives, food banks, and giving trees maintain that same Victorian conviction that Christmas joy should extend beyond our own families, that celebration requires inclusion, that the season calls us toward generosity and community care. Family photographs, whether posed by Christmas trees or captured during gift exchanges, continue the Victorian fascination with preserving holiday memories. They treasured daguerreotypes, cartes de visite, any image that could capture Christmas joy for future reflection. We take hundreds of digital photos, but we're driven by identical impulses: the need to hold on to these precious moments, to prove that joy happened here, that families gathered, that love was present and recorded. The exhaustion that follows Christmas Day, that gentle fatigue from too much food, too much excitement, too much joy, mirrors exactly what Victorian families experienced after their elaborate celebrations. The cleanup, the quiet evening, the satisfied tiredness of celebration well done. These feelings haven't changed at all. We still need that gentle descent from holiday heights, that peaceful return to normal rhythms, that sense of having participated in something larger than ourselves. As we stand at the threshold of understanding Christmas past and present, we see how seamlessly Victorian innovations became modern traditions, how their dreams of perfect celebration became our lived reality. Yet questions linger. What drives this universal human need for seasonal ritual? Why do we crave these moments of shared joy? What deeper hunger do these celebrations feed? These mysteries, these beautiful human puzzles, await us in our final exploration together, in our journey's end. Chapter 15, The Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come. And now we find ourselves at the final mirror, reflecting on our own celebrations, our own traditions. In this quiet moment, let us gaze into the soft glow of modern Christmas lights and ponder what these ancient stories, these tales of Krampus and stern judgments, have taught us about ourselves and the holidays we cherish today. Picture your own Christmas tree, its gentle lights casting warm shadows across familiar walls, the ornaments hanging there, each one carrying memories, stories of Christmases past. How different this scene feels from those Victorian parlors where children trembled, waiting to discover whether they had been deemed good or found wanting by the watching spirits of the season. The warmth of gathered family, the laughter echoing through modern homes. How far we have traveled from those days when Christmas morning meant judgment, when stockings held switches instead of sweets. Yet something lingers, doesn't it? Some echo of those older ways, when the holiday carried weight, when consequences felt real, when stories had the power to shape young hearts. The tales of Krampus, the stories of stern Santa, they served a purpose, didn't they? These weren't mere entertainment, but moral compasses, guiding children through the darkness of winter toward the light of good behavior. Even now, in our gentler age, we still tell stories, still use the magic of narrative to teach right from wrong. How remarkable this transformation from judge to jolly gift giver. Santa's evolution mirrors our own changing understanding of childhood, of celebration, of what the holidays should bring. No longer the stern arbiter deciding who deserves joy, but a symbol of unconditional generosity, spreading wonder to all, regardless of their place on any naughty or nice list. Yet sometimes, in quiet moments like this, we might wonder, have we lost something precious in our rush toward endless comfort, endless gifts? Have we forgotten the power of anticipation, the weight of consequence, the deep satisfaction of truly earning, the joy that comes when celebration follows genuine reflection and growth? Holiday traditions, they are mirrors, aren't they? Reflecting not just what we believe, but who we hope to become. The stories we tell, the rituals we maintain, they shape the next generation, just as Krampus tales and Victorian moralizing shaped those who came before us. Each tradition carries forward both wisdom and the possibility of change. Children today, they absorb these gentler Christmas stories, learning that Santa comes to all, that stockings overflow with treats, that Christmas morning brings joy, not judgment. How different their understanding from Victorian children who learned that behavior had consequences, that stories had teeth, that the holiday season watched and remembered everything. The stories that shape us, they never really disappear, do they? They transform, evolve, finding new ways to teach ancient lessons. Krampus becomes a fascinating tale told safely by the fireplace. Victorian discipline becomes historical curiosity, yet underneath, the human need for meaning, for moral guidance, for stories that help us understand right from wrong, remains unchanged. What will future Christmas mornings hold? We wonder as we sink deeper into the comfort of this moment. Will our children's children gather around trees of light, telling stories of our time when Santa was jolly, when stockings held only sweetness, when Christmas promised nothing but joy? Will they find our traditions as quaint as we find Krampus? Perhaps some traditions will endure, the gathering, the giving, the sense of something magical stirring in the winter darkness. Others may fade, replaced by customs we cannot yet imagine, but the human heart, the need for connection, for stories that bind us together, for holidays that lift us beyond the ordinary rhythms of daily life, these will continue as they always have. The cycle of storytelling continues. Each generation receives tales from those before, transforms them, makes them their own, then passes them forward, changed but recognizable. Victorian children became parents who softened the edges, who chose wonder over fear, who decided that Christmas should embrace rather than judge, and so the story of the holiday continues to unfold, continues to evolve. The lessons passed down through Krampus tales, through stern Santa stories, through Victorian discipline, they haven't disappeared. They have simply found subtler ways to teach us about consequence, about gratitude, about the importance of reflection. Even in our age of abundant gifts, the deeper messages remain, waiting to be discovered by those who listen carefully. There is magic, isn't there, in believing, whether in Krampus, in Santa, in the power of stories to shape our understanding. Children who trembled at Victorian Christmas tales grew up to create gentler celebrations, proving that even fear-based traditions can evolve toward love, can transform judgment into joy, can turn winter's darkness into light. As we rest here in this peaceful moment, surrounded by the glow of modern Christmas, we can appreciate the long journey these traditions have taken, from ancient solstice celebrations, through medieval moralizing, through Victorian strictness, to our present age of gentleness and abundance, each era leaving its mark on the continuing story of how humans celebrate the return of light. And now, as our journey through Christmas past and Christmas present comes to its gentle close, let yourself sink deeper into comfort, knowing that these stories, these traditions, continue their quiet work, binding us to past and future, teaching us about love, about consequence, about the eternal human need for celebration, for connection, for the magic of believing in something beautiful. Rest now